This is the AWS session regarding Marketplace Acceleration Revenue, and I'm joined by David Rocha, our Senior Partner Solution Architect aligned to the account, and I'm Nikos with a fairly unpronounceable family name that looked after the partnership in EMEA. I'm obviously not Sydney Childs, who was originally advertised for the session, but I hope I'll do a similarly good job on presenting the topics this afternoon. So we'll discuss briefly what's the construct of the AWS Marketplace. We'll discuss potential benefits and motives about why end customers, but also sellers, list items and services on Marketplace. We'll touch on the actual processes of Marketplace private offer and channel partner private offers, which for yourselves ropes in instantly with the Cloud Elevate program that was literally announced a couple of hours ago by SUSE at the premises of the conference. David will give us a deep dive on the actual individual category listings, the differences and compatibilities between them. Some of them are interchangeable, some of them are pretty unique on their own. And we'll close by selling some additional resources, a Q&A and a feedback, okay? Hopefully being well within our allocated time slot. So, in principle, the AWS Marketplace is what it says, a full offering of a broad selection of products that's offered to any end user that is enrolled to AWS. Key benefits is definitely the quick procurement with all sorts of flexibility and offering of pricing terms, delivery terms, service terms that are indicated by the associated ISVs or AWS. It's quite easy, quick, and a very secure deployment, and certainly contributes very much to the risk defense posture a customer has, especially because it offers very concise centralized tracking, governance, and aggregate. So it's in principle a tool that is very, very valuable to all aspects of an end user customer, technical decision making, finance decision-making, and process organizations. And currently is a very, very rich and very well-attended marketplace by in excess of 100,000 end-user customers that have already trusted their IT purchases on AWS with quite ramping numbers. I'll elaborate a little bit on how these numbers look at and the actual motions. Let's spend a few minutes of understanding exactly how the AWS Marketplace works. You have in principle obviously a buyer, and at the other side you have an ISV. For the sake of the conversation, we'll focus on SUSE. There are in principle three individual motions an end user customer can utilize over the AWS Marketplace to source products and services by an ISV, in this case SUSE. The first one is obvious, it's pretty much self-service. Most of the products are listed, browsable and attainable. The customer can instantly identify the product, the characteristics, calibrate on the type of product they need. In some cases, choose the region and other machine attributes of how the infrastructure will look on AWS, procure the product, and instantly initiate its operation. So this is pretty much a direct procurement. The second motion adds a next level of intelligence, predominantly on the commercial aspects of the transaction. So what is being called is in principle a private offer because it actually entails the conversation between the ISV and the end user customer negotiating a customized contract. And customized contract would be, for example, quantities, would be payment terms, and would potentially be additional or slightly different terms than the actual standard terms that are on offer on the AWS Marketplace. So this is the point, for example, where a customer would approach the ISV and ask for customized elements. ISV to customer.
And on the listings itself, the ISV like SUSE can define it based off number of instances, vCPUs, RAM, or you can define, depending on what your software is, whatever dimension you want. So whether it's maybe you're monitoring nodes, I know with like SUSE Manager, right? The number of connected nodes that are connected to SUSE, that is a dimension. How many nodes is SUSE Manager managing? So you can really define that as an ISV, and I know working with SUSE, we try to do what's best for the customers and what closely resembles how it's working on-premise.
And adding to David's comment, or actually complementing, the third motion, which is what we call internally channel partner private offers, or you may have heard it referred as CPPO, is actually the motion where a channel partner or a reseller who's already engaged with AWS offers on behalf of this ISV, in case SUSE, the actual product offerings to the end user customer. In this case, it's the channel partner that does the negotiation with the ISV of the actual quantities, deliverable, payment terms. The channel partner or solution partner adds their own services after sales and offers this motion to the end user customer. The common denominator of all of these elements is that all of the mechanisms, rules and conditions, delivery, payment, consoles are trackable through a unique construct in the marketplace. Hence, this adds uniformity, removes complexity, and adds security in the overall transaction. Let's dive deep a little bit more into these three statements. In a marketplace, obviously, as we said, you can find and deploy software. We consolidate and optimize the costs, acceleration of time to value, and certainly enhance governance. These, in some elements, may sound a little bit of marketing aspirational statements. So instead of just staying on those, I'd like to share some insights that originated by a deep research done by Forrester on the actual performance of the marketplace. Despite the fact that the research is actually dated in 2022, the actual results today are even better and more accelerated in momentum. But for the sake of precision, I'll still remain with these findings. Customer surveyed responded that in principle they had 60% time savings due to efficiencies. Any one of you who has negotiated with a vendor the processes and terms and conditions understand that if there is an overarching infrastructure which is very easy to adopt, this removes processing time. It certainly removed substantially the reduction in onboarding effort for a new vendor. So for example, if you already as a customer have a set of transactions on the marketplace, it's quite easy for a new ISV to get on board the mechanism and approach you as a customer without yourselves needing to go through the actual process complexity. Last and definitely not least, and in some cases it may sound a little bit mixed as a message if you are an ISV partner, but good and solid centralized governance drives cost efficiency. If you have a single point of reference that is precise, up to date, and very well managed, tracking your actual license expenditure, this obviously drives to precise management and economy of scale, hence the last point. If we actually see that on the perspective of why an ISV eventually approaches AWS to sell on a marketplace, it's pretty straightforward. You grow your customer base, you improve obviously your efficiency and profitability, you sell the way your customers want to buy, and I'll elaborate on this one, which is potentially the hidden secret. Several customers engage with AWS in a conversation of a fixed commitment over a future period, say for the sake of argument a year, into a process that is called a committed spend. So it's a negotiation of a specific expenditure in exchange for customized beneficial commercial terms. A customer will typically consume this contract by absorbing and utilizing native AWS services, the likes of compute, the likes of storage, but they also have the right of consuming up to 25% of that commitment in purchases from listed ISVs on the marketplace. So in simple terms, if a commit is $100, the customer has the right to utilize and reap the benefits of 25 cents to the actual dollar of each commit up to the total period of the negotiated contract. And that is the hidden motivator of why customers eventually tend to gravitate quickly towards via marketplace purchases when they have an EDP or private purchase agreement in place. And it also benefits the ISVs because the survey finds that comparing to any different path to market, there are higher win rates, so better and higher quality conversion. Obviously a faster sales cycle because all of you that have delved into all sorts of sale processes like Medic and etc., you know that the paper trail negotiation and the terms and condition is one of the most important value deteriorating coefficients. So if that part of the equation is solved because it's a marketplace mechanics, it simply accelerates a no value conversation. And last and definitely not least, the average transaction size was higher by 80% in the people surveyed. So it's a quite lucrative and value-rich channel, both for the ISV and efficient for the customer. And now I'll cede the space to David, who will dive deep with us into the individual motions of how a customer can procure SUSE offerings and listings via Marketplace. David.
I can control it.
Oh, thank you.
So it's really intended for existing customers, but then again, current customers who or customers that are thinking about moving to SUSE from other products can also launch it as well. So there are AWS published AMIs. These are SLES and SLES for SAP. These are AMIs where AWS is the reseller. With those AMIs, the customer, as they spin up those instances from those machine images, they will receive, or they have an opportunity to get AWS premium support. So they can purchase that through AWS, so that first level, second level support is handled by AWS. You don't have to go to different, support contacts to work on that system. SUSE we still work closely with SUSE for any kind of bugs, issues, any type of engineering efforts. We have a close relationship with SUSE where we're able to escalate those issues, open up Bugzillas, and then escalate that problem. There are also individual marketplace listings. So Rancher Prime, or SUSE Rancher Prime, SUSE New Vector, they're all listed in the marketplace, sold by SUSE, right? They're not sold by AWS. So you have these listings in the marketplace that you can procure from. You can purchase these products, and that's where Nikos was letting you know that if a customer has a EDP spend, they can start retiring that commitment for AWS consumption based off of that software consumption from that individual listing. We also, SUSE recently also published a SUSE multi-product listing, MPL, and that's a listing that really has the SUSE catalog available, right? Customers can define what products they want and the quantities they want and transact. It's not publicly listed yet. It's kind of a hidden listing, but I do know that they are working on, SUSE is currently working on making that available. With that listing, that's the listing that will really allow any partners like SIs to do and take advantage of those CPPO offers, right? Where they want to work with SUSE with their customer and say, okay, we're actually providing the support. We're layering on our services, and it will be primarily through that SUSE multi-product listing.
So let's talk a little bit about the specific characteristics of these two individual transaction offers, and I'll focus quickly on them. So on the marketplace private offer, which as a kind reminder is a transaction between the ISV, SUSE, to the end user customer. So this conversation is more relevant to yourselves if you are an end user wishing to source products from SUSE on the marketplace. There's the ability to obviously negotiate price, terms and conditions, provide volume discounts, and definitely, as a consequence, shorten the billing cycles and simplify and consolidate the billing. The actual outcome of this process, to make it sound real, is that as your customer, when you log into your actual AWS console, you will see that offer exactly in the same format as an offer letter, including what is being offered, customized payment terms, additional terms and conditions if the ISV so chooses to decide. And by accepting this, the process is instantly initiated. So within seconds, you're provided the entitlements, the transaction is listed, and the actual mechanics are being automated with the installments of the payment at the disbursement, so the way the fees are actually paid back to the ISV. A very similar construct exists also on the channel partner private offer, but in this case, it is the channel partner that logs into their portal, picks up the actual activated product offerings from the ISV, in this case SUSE, and offers them to the end customer. What's particularly relevant for you as a channel partner is that the check marks you need to make sure on such a conversation are rather simple. The first one obviously is to be activated as a reseller on the AWS domain. Certainly having done a similar process with SUSE, and I'm very happy we have Jason Vaughn into the hall, who is our alliance lead globally for the AWS SUSE partnership. And you also need to have a clear understanding whether the offering that's been given to yourselves as a channel partner by SUSE is valid for a unique customer transaction or is an umbrella transaction, for example, a promotion, a standardized offering based on the discounts your tiering with SUSE would offer you. And based on these, you can actually create an absolutely customized offer and provide it to the customer. What's also quite interesting in this conversation is that AWS disburses simultaneously the actual amount of monies that are due to every organization when it's gathered by the customer. So in contrast to any other construct, the like of reseller, distributor, where the money daisy chains across, AWS will get the money from the customer and instantly disperse to the ISV and to the channel partner that are associated. So if you're on the channel partner and on the ISV side, this provides additional clarity and potential benefits in the net cash flow of the conversation. Simplicity and clarity. There are some listing fees. So on the listing fees conversation is actually banded based on the actual size of the transaction, what you'd call TCV. And you see the actual table on the side of AWS. These listings are for marketplace private offerings. So for ISV to direct customers, it's respectively 3%, 2%, and 1.5% from the 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 10 million, and 10 million and above bands for a TCV of every single transaction. Every single renewal that is based on marketplace is always capped at 1.5%, and a renewal may be identified either directly on the console by referencing the previous expired transaction, or in cases by the flagging and escalating directly with an ISV who would say, yes, this is already an installed base and an estate on the customer, but this transaction, albeit new to the marketplace, in principle is indeed a renewal from the perspective of the end user, hence would be eligible for the 1.5 band. In the cases of CPPO, channel partner transaction, these actual sums are increased by 0.5%. So respectively 3.5, 2.5, and 2 respectively. So to make it quite simple, in a transaction via CPPO of $100, if the disbursement would come, AWS would keep $3.5, and then in your commercial agreement with SUSE, you would instantly be allocated the remainder $96.5 in whatever commercial agreement is applicable between yourselves and SUSE if you're a sales partner. But certainly this is a process that is unique onboarding and it's not repeatable for every single ISV. So if SUSE is your first ISV you're considering for such a transaction, it is. If you're already as an SI partner enrolled in this process, there's no additional effort on the AWS side. You just need to go through the process via SUSE. And similar terms and conditions would apply from a renewal perspective on the MPL.
Yeah, so since now SUSE multi-product listing is a SaaS contract, it's not deploying any infrastructure within the customer. It's really for those subscriptions, right? And whatever services as that SI partner that you're adding. So there's no deployment of instances. There's nothing deployed on AWS's like accounts or SUSE accounts. It's really just the ability to transact that subscription agreement cost, right? So it's contract only. There's no instances as an SI partner. If you're part of that CPPO process, I mean, that's part of that statement of work that you would define and deploy, or if there's already an existing environment, it's just you add that managed service on top of that.
So if you are actually helping a customer, or as a customer, you're considering your journey from a current off-cloud instance where you have already investments with SUSE, the MPL is probably one of the most optimized tools that would allow you to execute the commercial transaction via the marketplace, but still maintain a pace that doesn't force you to have specific timed milestones of how you actually initiate the transition to our cloud actually executing there. So fairly flexible, specific in migration scenario. I'm sure we will be sharing materials after the presentation via the SUSECon portal, and all of these links give a quite elaborate detail on all of the information we shared today. I'd like to close with some thoughts, okay? Cloud Elevate program is one of the most commercially exciting news I personally heard during this event, and I've been aligned to the partnership, privileged to be there, for the last 2 years. This is a statement from SUSE's Cloud Vice President, Christine Puccio, announcing the launch of the program. And AWS at this stage is first to market with SUSE, okay? So I would like you to walk away from the conversation today of connecting Cloud Elevate with the term AWS CPPO and do two things. If as a partner of SUSE this resonates for you, do approach the SUSE team and especially email cloudsales@suse.com, which will initiate the process of you enriching your current partner status with SUSE with this add-on as a contract. This will automatically initiate the process and we'll all together work together into identifying all of the steps, and they're typically quite rapid, into enabling you transacting in this fashion. If you're a SUSE and or an AWS customer, you may want to very quickly identify your channel partners of choice, ask them questions if they're already members of the CPPO program, look at your own commitments in the form of PPA or EDP with AWS, and do consider including these purchases of your SUSE technology via that motion. It's quite beneficial, and straight to David's comments, withdraw from your EDP and PPA up to the level of 25% of the yearly commit. So it's a quite elegant and quite efficient proposal.
I do want to touch on one thing before the questions.
Sorry.
In that slide where you had the BYOS listing, the AMI AWS resold listing, the SaaS contract listing, with it on the AMI listings and the AWS resold listings, if those are launched, there's not a way to interchange between the two. So if you launch a BYOS listing, that is the listing that will stay there for the life of that instance. You can create another image based off another, like whether it's a AWS resold instance, but you have to replace it. There's not a way to take that image that's BYOS and make it AWS resold. The good thing about the flexibility with the multi-product listing is you can start layering additional subscriptions, like with SLES 12 becoming end of life, or end of GA, not end of life, end of GA in, I think, October. In October, you can go through the multi-product listing, purchase like LTSS, and add that onto an existing subscription. So in the future, we'll be able to process that and handle that both on the BYOS instances, of course, because it's adding that subscription, but specifically on those AWS resold. But I do want to point that out. I think I missed that.
And on that note, I'd certainly like to thank David and yourselves for the attendance.